being a true visionary takes a ton of work. And if you're not able to put the work behind casting that vision, then you're probably just kind of... Welcome to Leadership Highway. I'm Coach McCurdy. Leadership Highway is the fast-track podcast to help you 10x your impact, break down barriers, and most importantly, get out of your own damn way. Welcome to episode 1. So, I've been an executive, a business owner, I've been a consultant, and for the last decade, I have been a coach to our nation's top performers across the corporate and military space. I've been working with a lot of leaders, and I'm hearing the same things over and over and over. To date, over 4,000 hours with my clients, I'm starting to see some rhythms and some patterns in how we communicate and how we operate, both personally and professionally. And so what I hope to do with you as we take this road trip on Leadership Highway, to help both of us notice the trends, the patterns, the small micro adjustments that we can make that will have a macro impact on how we think about our leadership, how we think about our communication, and how we think about the trajectory of our lives and careers. So, we're going to work on identifying those things that will help you get out of your own damn way. So thank you for taking this journey with me. I want you to keep taking all of these journeys with me. I want you to like and share, and most importantly, comment. Let me know what types of things you're seeing, because what we're talking about might sound easy when I'm doing this with you on a podcast, but it's not. It's really, really hard. So today, the first thing we're going to talk about is communication. Why? Because if we cannot communicate, we cannot lead. And communication is where we tend to get hung up an awful lot of the time. We think we're communicating something. We think there's something we want to give to somebody else. But what comes out of our mouth, what comes out of our fingers on the keyboard, what comes out of our body language is often radically different. And sometimes we are so caught up on a quest for understanding that we actually sabotage the effectiveness of our own people. So let's talk about communication. A leader who cannot communicate cannot possibly lead others. Let's think about what happens on the flip side. If you don't communicate well, a leader who cannot communicate eventually becomes a sole contributor, an individual contributor. Why? Because nobody can work with them, because nobody can understand them, because what they do sabotages the ultimate goal, efficiency, and effectiveness of the organization. So it's critically important that we learn some ways to think about communication. And today we're just going to touch on a few. Because if we do this well, we win. If we fail, so do our people. So let's not freaking fail if we can help it. Most importantly, in this episode, we're going to talk about ways that you can stop confusing your people. Don't let them down by sitting there listening to you wax poetic about things that don't matter. Let's make sure that we speak the language of the people who need to hear what we have to say in a way that's actionable, a way that's tangible, a way that's important. You ready for this? All right. So let's think about how leadership is tiered in an organization. We all want to sit at the top of the organization, and if you don't, I want to hire you so you can keep working for me. But at the top of the organization, we have what we think of as our visionaries. Our visionaries are the people who can see way off into the future. They know the direction that the entire fleet is headed. It's difficult to be a visionary when you do it really, really well. The organization takes off. But your visionary also has people who work underneath them that we can think of as a strategist. Your strategists, those are your executive leadership team. Those are your senior leaders across the organization. And your visionary who casts that vision for the world and for the investors and the board of directors also has to speak a little bit of a language called strategy, so that the people who report up to that top of the organization actually understand how the vision translates. Your strategists, your executive leadership team, your top leaders need to speak strategy awfully well. You can't have someone on your executive leadership team who can't devise a strategy for the division that they run, for the people that they run, for the country that they're responsible for their area of responsibility. If they can't figure out what a strategy is, that's their first language. But they have to speak a little vision so that they can understand what the top of the organization is asking them to do, so they can make sure that they're headed in the right direction. But they also have to be able to communicate that strategy to the people just below them. Your managers and your senior managers in the organization, they need to understand that. And those guys, they're not speaking strategy, they're speaking tactics. So your strategist within the organization is actually trilingual. They speak a little bit of vision so that they can understand what direction to point. They speak a lot of strategy so they can work laterally with all of their peers and make sure the entire organization doesn't derail. And then they have to speak some tactics so that their people aren't confused about how to execute. Super important. Then your managers, your senior managers, guess who works for them? All of your individual contributors. So your tactician has to be able to understand just enough strategy to make sure that what they decide to do makes sense, and an awful lot of individual contributor language so that their people know what to do. You can have the best strategy in the world, you can have the biggest vision in the world, but if the people on the ground have no idea what the hell they're doing, you can just sit there. You might as well just, I don't know, I guess, write another book, talk to yourself, go do something, but you're not going to drive an organization. So let's talk about this idea of visionary leadership. In my experience, most people walk into a coaching session, walk into their first job thinking, well, I'm doing this now, but really, I'm a visionary. I've got these big ideas. I was dreaming last night and I had this idea, and so I must be a visionary, right? Not necessarily. Being a true visionary takes a ton of work. And if you're not able to put the work behind casting that vision, then you're probably just kind of lazy. You probably have great big ideas, but don't want to do anything about it. And you say, well, that's because I'm a visionary. I think I'm just going to sit back and come up with this big idea, and then somebody's going to figure out how to make that happen. But that somebody starts with the visionary. So if you start to feel like you're a visionary, but you're not willing to do the work, if it doesn't keep you up at night thinking about how you want the organization to change, how you want to build this, if you're not already thinking about all the things that need to happen so that you can actually inspire the people below you, you might just be fantasizing. So, and it's much easier. Oh my gosh, it's so much easier to fantasize about what might happen in the future than to do the work of leadership right now. So let's talk a little bit about why that is, because I really don't want you all to stop listening to me because you think I just called you lazy. All right. But if we know the why that things happen, maybe we can catch ourselves in the act, and then we can actually start doing the work that moves us forward. And we'll understand why certain things feel harder than others. So I'm sure there's a very smart person out there who can explain and has a name for what this is, but I call it the lottery effect. There's some science about how we think about things that are either likely or not likely to happen, and things that are imminent, about to happen, or really far out in the future. So the further away something is from really happening, and the less likely something is to happen, the easier it is for us to know exactly what we would do. Here's what that looks like. People go, they buy a lottery ticket, and they say, generally, I know know I'm not going to win. But if I did, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'll give some to here. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. Why? Because statistically, it's never going to happen. You can talk all night long about why you think that this is exactly what you would do, because it isn't going to happen. And that makes it super, super easy. On the other hand, your friend, your partner, your sister walks up and says, hey man, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, oh, I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? When you know for damn sure dinner's going to happen, you're going to have to eat something, and there's probably foods you like. So when we think about our leadership strategy, we have to recognize that if something's not likely to happen and we feel like it is really, really easy to figure out, and something is absolutely going to happen and we feel stuck, our first step in unpacking that is to recognize that we actually are pretty normal. And so we have to recognize that and then say, okay, well, if I could figure out what I'd do if I won the lottery, then I can go back and figure out what it is that I need to do today. So if you think about leadership, it's a map. Your visionary knows that we are taking a trip and we are going from point A to point B. They also know that between point A and point B, there's a building, there's a mountain, there's a forest, or going on a bear hunt. If you remember that from summer camp, maybe not. And so your visionary says, hey, I can see all the way over that building. I can see over the mountains. I can see through the forest, and I see where point B is. Your strategist says, yep, I understand which direction you want us to go, and we're going to need to make sure that people understand how to open doors and go through buildings, and we're probably going to need a little mountain climbing, and we should probably line up a little bit of, mountaineering to get through that forest. And so they start lining up all the things that need to happen. Your tactician says, all right, folks, there's a building in front of us. We got to get to the other side of that building because that puts us in the direction of the strategy. And it's going to be, 12,000 steps, and we're going to have 13 doors, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have this, and this is how we'll know we'll get there. And your individual contributors pick up those packs, lace up those boots, and say, all right, let's walk. And when they get to the other side of the building, your visionary says, hey, we're getting in that direction. We can see it. The organization's moving forward. And your strategist is going to say, yep, guys, we can drop all of our door opening packs, and we're going to pick up our mountain climbing gear, and we're going to execute on that training we just had. And your tacticians are going to say, okay, does everyone have everything they need? And your individual contributors are going to start working on that mountain, and so on, and so on, and so on. But at each level, if we're not clear about what's going on, then our people can't be clear. So as we think about communication, just for today, I want you to think about, where are you in the organization? What language are you speaking? And are you communicating in a way that the people above you and below you can understand? I hope you'll join me for more of these road trips and pit stops. I am Coach McCurdy, and I'm asking you to like, follow, and share, and most importantly, comment on the Leadership Highway podcast. I cannot wait for us to do this again. Remember, it's a shit show out there, so it's up to you to buckle up and figure out how to enjoy the ride. Thanks.